This is Beth Dutton doing what girls do on first dates. You know, running the pack of wolves off a dead elk in the middle of nowhere.
You're the craziest person I've ever met in my life, you know that?
It's only the things I love that die, Rip, never me.
Oh. Oh. Oh! Episode 1 of Yellowstone introduced you to the main characters in the primary Season 1 plot. Episode 2 shows quite a bit more about how these characters interact. For example, Beth Dutton and her brother, Jamie.
I could use some advice.
Yes, I know you're gay, and no. Daddy will not still love you when you tell him.
Then, Beth Dutton and her fling, Rip Wheeler.
You got old.
Dad, you have an edge today.
John Dutton, with just about anyone in town.
Well, you tell me what he should have seen, John, and by tomorrow that'll be all he ever saw. Done my work.
You get the idea. I'm Billy Dukes, co-host of the Dutton Rules podcast, with a spoiler alert warning for episode 2. You can find a link to the recap of episode 1 in the description section below. Please consider giving a subscribe while you're down there. I promise I'll get to what just hit me like a shot of whiskey at the end of this video, but it includes spoilers, so I'll save it for those of us who either like spoilers or, like me, are watching this show again now that it's on CBS. This was sort of a cleanup episode, and the actual plot didn't advance all that much. Still, there are important questions answered, like why did Rip kill the medical examiner? What happened to John Dutton's wife? What's up with Beth? Progress wasn't made on the land dispute between the ranch and the reservation, and progress wasn't made on the neighborhood being built by Dan Jenkins next door. In fact, Dan wasn't even really a major part of this episode. We did learn quite a bit more about John Dutton's wife, and we started to learn that Beth may have some mommy issues. Is that foreshadowing? Yes it is. I want to start with Rip, however, and why he needed to commit the first of what I promise you will be many murders. In fact, I'm going to start keeping count. So far, Kayce Dutton has 2 kills. His brother-in-law, Robert, and the guy whose meth lab blew up in episode 2. That was sort of a mercy killing, but it counts. Rip notched his first kill. I'm not counting Robert's murder of Lee from episode 1 because he's dead, so that total won't increase. Or will it? No, it won't. It definitely won't. Give a thumbs up if you're a first-time watcher and like what you see, and ask if you have questions. You can put them in the comments or at staff@tasteofcountry.com in an email. I always say this is a conversation, and I often take questions to the Dutton Rules podcast, which publishes weekly here on YouTube and all podcast platforms. About 10 minutes into episode 2, there's a scene in the barn where John refers to Kayce's military training. Now, we don't have all the details yet, but it's clear that Kayce was much more than just a private in the army. For starters, he makes a call to get back with his team, a SEAL team maybe, we don't know. But ultimately Monica, who can be very persuasive, talks him out of it. Yeah, just about every time we see Monica, she's in some state of undress early on, and I'm not going to say much about Kelsey Asbell, who I adore as an actor and I think does a great job with Monica later. She's kind of tough to watch during seasons 1 and 2, however, even if she is easy on the eyes. During a meeting with the governor, we learned that the Duttons tried to play Robert Long's death off as Lee, killing him as part of a failed self-defense. If you recall, that's Monica's brother, and he shot Lee when they tried to get the cattle back, and then Kayce killed Robert. However, the medical examiner determined that the bullet that struck Lee would have instantly paralyzed him, making him incapable of shooting a gun. This could force an investigation, which is what nobody wants, so Jamie says, I'll take care of this, and he kind of does. I want you to remember that because at times Jamie can be very, very competent. Meanwhile, Thomas Rainwater and his sidekick Mo realize the same exact thing.
Kayce Dutton, the hero, the soldier.
Along the way, we find out that 2 state agents said they saw an unidentified man on a horse the morning after. It was Kayce. The plan is to do whatever necessary to make this all go away, so John tells his friend to tell his son to say he saw something else that morning.
The oldest boy said he saw someone bring Lee to my house.
Yeah, that's what he told me.
Yeah, well, he's got to stop telling people that.
That's not what happened?
It's exactly what happened. It's going to cost me another son if he keeps telling it.
Easy enough. Then John goes to talk to the priest that owes him a favor. Yeah, he legitimately blackmails a priest, and he has him dial up the perfect sermon so that the other witness chooses to defend his flock, i.e. John, instead of reporting the truth.
Feels like your sermons are meant just for me.
Sometimes they are. I don't choose the sermon or who it speaks to. My job is just to deliver it.
Thumbs up this video if you were shocked that that worked. The last person is the stubborn medical examiner who won't budge on his finding that Lee couldn't have killed Robert, so Rip shows up in black gloves. It's never a good thing when Rip shows up in black gloves. They talk and fight. Rip has him set up a bomb in a microwave before he chokes him out and blows the place up and destroys the computer and all autopsy evidence. He kind of convinces the guy to agree to it all.
You see, it's the habit of living that you're scared of losing. That's all.
The only evidence left at this point is Lee's body, which John, after more than a little internal struggle, takes care of.
This oven will incinerate a horse in an hour. Never had a person in it, though.
Did you notice that lingering stare that John gives Jamie there? It's kind of like he blames him, and I'm really not sure I understand that. The takeaway here is that John operates above the law, and he really always has. You start to see the seeds of this in season 1 of 1923 when Harrison Ford's Jacob Dutton forms the Livestock Commission. Good people do bad things for the Duttons. Anyone else catching Godfather vibes? There are a lot of similarities between the two, and Taylor Sheridan has even fessed up to telling Kevin Costner that Yellowstone is basically the Godfather of Montana, which makes John Dutton Vito Corleone, I guess. Back at the ranch, before all of this goes down, Jamie goes to Beth for advice on how to handle all this.
Being here is so terrible for you, Beth. You can go back to Salt Lake.
You asked for advice. I gave it.
You know, I'm not gay. I'm celibate. Because I am terrified to get somebody pregnant, pass on the gene that made you.
Good one.
Yeah, they don't get along. But the subtle thing to notice here is the family picture she took off the wall before he got there. Jamie hung it back up. It featured her with her parents. Later, she accepts in her first official date with Rip, and they go watch wolves eat a dead elk.
Beth?
You'll notice that I didn't mention Kayce Dutton much, although he does kill that meth dude, and afterward the reservation sheriff offers to trade slides of handguns with. That's the same gun used to kill Robert. Has to be a damning piece of evidence, doesn't it? Time will tell, right? Actually, no, it won't. One frustrating thing about Yellowstone is that plot lines sometimes fade away, and this is one of them. I know it's a spoiler, but really I'm showing you where to focus, so moving forward I'm not going to waste time on scenes that, as someone who's watched all 5 seasons, I know don't matter. Somewhere in the middle there's a bunkhouse scene, but beyond seeing that this old-timer named Lloyd has the same brand as Jimmy, we don't learn a whole lot, so I'm not going to add some detail there yet. Don't worry, we'll do a formal introduction soon. The final scene of episode 2 could be the most important. John, after agreeing to cremate Lee, spreads his ashes near his late wife's grave. Evelyn Dutton died on March 30th, 1997, but we don't know how yet. I'll warn you now that you're going to find several well-done Yellowstone family tree YouTube videos, including one that I made, but those all include spoilers about what's to come in seasons 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you need to know who is related to who in season 1, check out our episode 1 of season 1 recap video, which has a time code to that information in the description section. Musically, this episode was thin, but you probably recognized Thunder Kiss 65 by White Zombie. That's a song from my angsty teenage years. The other song at the rodeo was Song 2 by Blur, another song from my teenage years. And the song in the bunkhouse was Bad News by Whitey Morgan and the 78s. Finally, the episode closed with Goodbye Yesterday by Billy Joe Shaver.
Goodbye yesterday, goodbye dreams, I won't be dreaming.
If you've stuck around until now, I want to say thank you. I'd give you a thumbs up if I could. At the beginning of this episode, I reacted to this Beth Dutton quote.
It's only the things I love that die Rip, never me.
All I'm going to say about this is, does anyone else think that this sort of seals the fate of Rip and John Dutton at the end of the series? I'm Billy Dukes for Taste of Country. Thanks for watching, and thanks for subscribing.